Are we about to witness a massive shift in changing tides in Bitcoin land, or is this the last chance for love?
Let me into my zone. Let me into my zone. Please don't let me into my zone. 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 Please don't let.
Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave, people of camera number 2. Once again, we are here to discuss some very important price action. However, before we get into that, I do need to make a massive announcement because there's been a lot of confusion surrounding this, but it's understandable. And of course, it has to do with the Discord community. So if you are part of the general community in the in our Discord, the link, of course, is in the description down below, you'll notice that probably all of your access has been taken away from all of the channels that you could once see. We actually initiated a whole new verification process to kind of get rid of all of there's a whole bunch of fucking fuckery going around, which is really like the short answer to it. And we also kind of want to clean out and do a little bit of spring cleaning, if you want to call it that. Spring in Finland actually postponed for a little bit of time because it is actually literally snowing here right now. Anyways, more on topic. God damn it, Krown, focus. But the thing is that if you have not already verified yourself, the only way to verify yourself, listen very, very carefully, because this is really important if you do want to get back into the Discord channel, is you'll have to leave the channel. You'll have to, not leave the channel, but leave the server, completely leave the server, and then rejoin the server. And you can find a link in the description below. You can also find it on our website, crowntrading.net, and it's just right there for you. Anyways, more importantly, once you've actually rejoined the server after leaving it, you'll be prompted with a private message, direct message, whatever the fuck you want to call it, that will show up in the top left-hand side of your Discord pop-up, whatever it is. And it will be from our lovely Welcome Sentinel bot titled, or his name, I believe, is Altdenifier, ALTDENTIFEIR. If I spell properly, I don't know. Someone's going to probably nail me on that. Krown, you don't know how to spell. Well, good thing I know how to trade. anyways, more importantly, spelling doesn't matter. But what's more important right now is that bot will DM you some instructions on how to verify yourself. It's a very, very simple process. I know it's annoying, but it is necessary to make the whole community better in general. We're trying to really up the quality of what's going on. I think that discussions have kind of been devolving maybe over some times. So we decided to put it in for that, for those reasons. And then, of course, to get rid of all the spam bots and everything as well, as that's really, really fucking annoying and in some ways even harmful. Anyways, so with regards to that, you'll be prompted with that private message. So that means that if you aren't accepting private messages or direct messages from server members, then you'll need to enable that. I believe it's under your privacy settings for Discord, and then the bot will be able to send you a private message. It'll set you up with a link on how to verify yourself. It'll try to do some sort of CAPTCHA, or maybe it'll allow you to verify yourself through like Twitter or Reddit or YouTube, some social media venue. That's pretty much applicable to everyone. And then again, for people who don't have anything like that, the CAPTCHA option is there as well. And once you've done that, it'll give you a specific role, and then you'll be granted all your access as you had before. And the community obviously going to be a lot more smaller now, but more intimate. And to be honest with you, I really, 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 really like that scene more than like the fucking massive crowd, which can get a little bit overwhelming at times. And when crowds get bigger and everything, it's like I feel like people value each other less because it's like, oh, well, there's another person brought in over here. Well, now that it's more intimate, once again, I have a feeling that it's going to bring back that community feel. Anyways, okay, Jesus Christ, man. That was a bunch of boring shit that you're probably not even interested in anyways, but for the people who are, want to make sure that you have that information right there. Again, if you were already a part of the Discord community, what you'll need to do now is you'll need to leave and then rejoin if you don't already have yourself verified, and then all good. Anyways, okay, getting on over here into the Krown trading application, which I have a very devastating announcement to make, actually, in a little bit more of a somber tone. I do want to look into the camera because this is a little bit serious. Our developer's wife, who's working on this and who was going to have the open interest chart ready hopefully by yesterday. Unfortunately, that's not going to be happening because his wife is showing symptoms of the coronavirus, and by extension, them living together, he's probably, if she has it, he probably has it as well. So right now he's going to go get checked out, and hopefully, we're going to keep our fingers crossed and everything's fine. But at the end of the day, priorities call right now, and so he'll have to take care of that. We wish him well and everything, and I'm sure that most people here even know him in the community. But for right now, all updates are going to have to be postponed for a little bit of time for obvious reasons. So again, looking back into it right now, I got to switch up gears once again. But looking at the open interest, we do see open interest coming down about 20 to 30 million from yesterday to today, which shows us that we have still yet to see the big bad break that we're looking for, whether it even comes to the upside or the downside. Referencing the beginning of this video, are we seeing a changing of tides, or are we seeing the last chance for love? Well, I can present the case for both, but there are some but anytime that you have that sort of an edge, it offers up a really nice trading, trading plan, I suppose. Anyways, with that said, it's still within the context of the open interest here that we are consolidating before this next change of behavior, so to speak, on the lower and medium timeframes. Now, can that extrapolate to the higher in the macro timeframes? Yes, absolutely. But those levels are still very much the same as we've been discussing for like the last, month or so now. And you can reference the long-term analysis video that I uploaded on Sunday in the long-term analysis playlist, which will go into much more detail on that. Anyways, on top of that, all other metrics for the underlying market dynamics are more or less the same. Crypto fear and greed index popped up a few points here. From an 11 read to a 15. Again, if there's anything that does make me lean a little bit more towards, okay, this could be a fake out and we actually do have a nice move to the upside, it would be that. You wouldn't expect the market to be so fearful when quite literally price action has doubled off the lows. That is a pretty damn good hallmark, actually, of a change of tides. Anyways, what's more important is actual price action, because we're just looking at a derivative right now. And so let's go into our price action charts right here. And what do you see? Bitcoin hovering right around the daily 21 exponential moving average. And there's a lot to say about this right here. So with yesterday's big wake up, testing all the way down to 65.50-ish region, but closing right around what kind of closing price did we get? About 68.50, it looks like. Amongst most major exchanges, it still offers up the potential for a nice hunt to the upside and maybe even a shift in market direction to the upside. But the levels to delineate these shifts, in my opinion, are more or less the same as what we saw yesterday. So going into our lower term timeframes, what I really want to focus on here is the 4 hour. Actually, this is one of the few times, well, not one of the few times, but I think things are just most clear from the 4 hour right here. When usually, it's the higher term timeframes, I'm gonna get it. But looking at the 4 hour right here, of course, we did get fake out golden cross back into death cross, and now as long as we are below, especially the green 55 exponential moving average and by extension the 200 exponential moving average, there is pressure down, of course. But could the tides of Bitcoin change for the short and medium time frames here back up to the upside? Yes, absolutely. What would be needed for me to kind of jump back on that train? And I mean, quite literally, a 4 hour total closure above the 200 exponential moving average at 69.50-ish region. To again look at your exchange, it's going to be different amongst many of them. And to staying open and closures above that region, yes, likely does line us up with, at the very least, another attempt back up towards this local high, about 71.50-ish region for the short term, and for the medium term, back up likely to this blue box territory right around here. So I do need to put in a few more because I am looking at the lower term timeframes right here, and what I'm talking about is this guy right here. This is only relevant to the low term timeframes, and I need to be very careful with the way that I express myself here, because this is where I think it's easiest for me to not say things in the way that I should be saying them. But what I'm trying to explain here is that the short-term timeframes, still a game between essentially, let's call it 67.50 if you want to be, or let's call it 6,700 on a more conservative note, into the upside about 69.50-ish region. And you could make a nice liquid zone right here even as well if you're like looking at the very low time frames. And I could put another blue box right here. So again, as long as Bitcoin is below this blue box, it's still pressure down. My overall bias is still certainly to the downside as long as it's below there. If Bitcoin gets above there on a short-term time frame, I'd at the very least look for another retest of this local high at about 71.50. And realistically speaking, I do think that, personally, I think Bitcoin would gun for the next medium-term time frame range back up to about 7,300, 7,350-ish region, give or take about $50. Now above there, things can change for the higher and macro-term time frames. If we close, say, like a 12-hour dildo, especially above 7,350 or 7,400-ish region, I would target another move and another extension, kind of what we were looking at last week during this redistribution phase right here, all the way up to about 7,800, 7,900 region in this blue box territory, correlating with our prior historical order block, not just coming in from March of this year, but actually all the way in this sort of breakout territory that we saw in late 2019 before this $4,000 move up from 65 to 10.5. So a very massive area from a historical standpoint. But at the end of the day, the sort of triggering effects for that are more or less the same for myself. And now I'm just kind of charting out the lower term timeframes because, well, realistically, very little fundamentals change other than that, and we need more things talked about because what the fuck, what else are you going to do on a Tuesday? I'm not going to do too much. Oh, I forgot to talk about Twitch. I probably won't be doing Twitch today. I need to go to the doctor again later, and probably not going to be good news. So I will be on tomorrow, very, 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 very likely. So fair enough. Anyways, for the downside, I actually do still lean to the downside here, especially as long as we're below 69.50-ish region, and I will hold short as long as we're below that region as well, especially on an open and closed basis for a 4-hour delta time frame. But the downside is a little bit more diabolical because we do have this trend line that's been coming in all the way from, sorry, let me actually put these back on, all the way back in from our March 13 lows right here, getting the last few local lows, 1, 2, you could even count this as 3, depending upon how you kind of aggressively put this over here. But say, it's more or less getting the same area. And what's more important to me is the correlation with the horizontal right here, which I do believe is getting it properly. So what does that mean? That means that if we actually do break 6,700, especially on a 4-hour delta closure, and realistically, because this area is so big, and it's not just a low-term time frame area, it's a medium time frame area as well, and you could even, by extension, make that a higher-term time frame area because we are looking at the culmination of the last month to a month and a half of price action right here in this kind of rising channel-ish formation, which is further verified by the volume signature, further verified by the open interest signature, kind of coming, oscillating between the $550 million and $700 million mark, and now and also by a lesser extension, well, actually more extension as I think that this gets it a little bit better, the 4-hour historical volatility percentile. Actually, maybe you could even use a daily at this point too. Yeah, it's contracting still quite a bit, but overall that area holds a lot of weight to myself. So I wouldn't look for the next big bad breakdown in Bitcoin price action until we realistically break this blue box right here. I'd want to see like a full-on clean closure below 6,700 on an open and closed basis. That would be beautiful. For the more aggressive traders, they might be looking at about 67.50 right here. I think that that's also relevant, but I don't see the need to be aggressive in this region, as this would initiate a measure move from this rising channel, or if you want to call it a rising wedge, whatever the fuck you want to call it. The implication is the same. Redistribution is the name of the game here. As far as I'm concerned, as long as we're living, as long as we're living below, 73 to 7,400, I do believe that it would initiate a measure move all the way down here towards about 4,850, 4,900-ish region. Now, of course, it would be a little bit, lofty to say that, if Bitcoin breaks this area, we're going to for sure have about a $2,000 move to the downside. I do believe that there's going to be bounce along the way, and perhaps even you do have a reversal somewhere along there as well. We'd have to see that in real time, but proverbially speaking, because it is, it is in the cards right here, and I do want to be thorough with the way that I talk about this. I technically it is there, although I would be looking for bounces around about 6,400, then 5,900, then 5,600, and then all the way down to the tippy top bottom at about 49, 48.50-ish region, give or take a few bucks. So at the end of the day, I do still think that there's pressure down, and I don't really have any reason to be even medium-term bullish as long as we're above, let's call it 73 to 7,400-ish region. That area very important, not just for the medium-term time frames, but also for the high and the macro time frames. You can see that that's our daily 55 exponential moving average right here, our last local high, if you want to call it that. And then also, if we go to the monthly dildo time frame, which I think is incredibly important for long-term direction, macro, you might even call it, we do see the yellow 21 exponential moving average hovering right around, or actually a little bit below 7,300-ish region, to be fair. Going back throughout the annals of history here, we do see, if we go to BLX index, that Bitcoin has a lovely interplay on playing off that yellow 21 exponential moving average for both his bull and bear phases. Whenever we're above it, generally good. Whenever below it, generally bad. Looking at the slope of it also further confirms that more long-term narrative of a macro trend. Anytime that we have anytime that we're living below it and also has a negative slope, well, that's this area right here where we get stuck below it. We do test a few times up, but on a closing basis, always below, and then boom, big move down. Then a positive slope emerges as Bitcoin regains it right on over here, and massive move from $300 to $20,000 fucking dollars. It's kind of crazy. And then same thing in 2018 to a lesser extent, not as crazy here. And then once again, it looks like we are once again in danger of really opening and closing our first monthly dildo below it since 2018. Which I do believe would really start to align with those further targets to the downside. But again, this channel is all about trading, not about fucking being an analyst and trying to have the call, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you fucking call someone if you don't trade for it. So, for for full disclosure, I'm still holding my short from like 7,200. I will close it above 7,000. We'll call it, or 6,950, depending upon what I see on a closing basis, and I'll just kind of let the chips fall where they may, as it's relatively easy to cover right here. Anyways, on top of that, I do want to go back to the daily and talk about something that I don't really talk about this too much, although I have been finding more and more use for it recently. It's kind of funny. I used to give this indicator a lot of shit, but it actually does kind of help my my analysis, or at least confirm my analysis using other tools in a more direct way. And that's the good old MACD, the McDonald's indicator. And what do you know? We do see that the MACD did get up right above the zero read, and now looking like it's getting a little bit tired here. More important than that, we do see obviously bearish divergence between this point and this point. So the momentum to the upside is waning. The question is though, do we get another spike up to meet this trend line and play out another move maybe up to 73? Does that move get us all the way up to maybe even 79 or 8,000? Possible, yes, but you can see that over the long period of time, it's momentum being gained to the downside right here. This is all the way throughout February of 2020, by the way, all the way down to March 13th, of course, and now momentum waning to the upside right here, while these guys get ready to potentially kiss and maybe even cross. Now, of course, that's not the way to be using the MACD, just waiting for like we got to cross. It's a cross time. It's easy. No, not necessarily. But if this cross happens alongside a major level being broken, well, now we have something to really discuss. And do we have a major level in play here? Yes, absolutely. As we just looked at, I mean, shit, man, even if we break this blue box right here and close a daily dodo, open and close a daily dodo below the 21, which we actually did close yesterday's below, I believe. Yeah, just barely, but we did. And especially below, let's call it 6,700. Then yes, I do believe that will really initiate the momentum back onto the downside. Further confirmed by our lovely daily Stokes right here, crossing back down from the critical zone. And I do believe that the 2-day and 3-day are kind of set to follow. Actually, no, not necessarily too much, but let's take this one step further. So we have this lovely reverse Stoke indicator cross right here. And what we can see from this is at which point it would actually cross back onto the downside. And what do you know? It's right around 6750-ish region. So I love the confluence there, saying that, hey, that area, it's not suggesting exactly what we're going to do. It's just saying that area is a big area. If we start to close these higher time frames below it, I would expect price action to come back down below 6,000 and, test those areas that we spoke about earlier. Again, want to remain open-minded here with price action, as overall the higher term timeframes are still mostly bearish to myself. Looking at the 2-day right here, I always come back down to this. I know it's probably getting annoying for the people who tune into this content daily, but for the people who are new here, we do have a very lovely and very, 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 very one of my favorite crosses, especially for Bitcoin. It's the 2-day dildo death cross right here, which is getting more and more momentum away from each other. So the strength of this cross, this cross is strengthening to the downside as you see more and more divergence between these two moving averages, the 55 and the 200. And what does that mean? That means that the bots and algos are switching on their sell programs slowly but surely. And as long as we are below the yellow 21 exponential moving average, especially on a closing basis, I am more immediately bearish. Doesn't mean that we can't pop back up and test around this region. Yes, it's still certainly very much within the cards, but as long as we're closing below, that is my disposition from a more defensive standpoint. As a trader, again, I know that like analysts love to get caught up in the fucking what do you even want to call it? I don't even want to. We don't need to talk about it. Jesus Christ, man. But works both to the upside and the downside. Beautiful cross the upside right here, 7,000 to 14,000. Lovely. Before that, we have a great example in 2018, and we do get the death cross here in September 2018, and then Bitcoin does test a 55 once along the way, gets shuffled back down below the 21, and as soon as we lose it right and over here. And by the way, between cross time and dooms drop time was from September. Early September 2018 to November of 2018. So September, October, November. So 2 to 3 months realistically. And that produced this lovely drop right here, 52%. to the downside. Then we have another massively amazing cross the upside in 2015. It was leading us all the way from 300 to 20,000. And then going back a little bit before that, we do see the last death cross before that right here. This one a little bit more similar to kind of what we're doing right now as well. We do see the price action very far away from the cross itself. Yes, the 21 is governing it, but Bitcoin regains it, tests the 55, sounds familiar to the 2018 one, right? And then once it loses the 21 once again on an open and close basis, it is doom's drop time all the way down to about 54% to the downside. Now, again, from cross right on over here, this was middle of October to doom's drop. Do you want to call it right here? This was December, early December. So, October, November, December, like 2.5 months, 2 months, depending upon where you kind of call it from. And then what do you know? Right after that, like we just said, about a 54% drop. So, much in line. Now, 2 times does not make a trend, of course, but we are working on a third iteration right here. So, I think that is of interest. And if we were to just play around with numbers, just out of curiosity, if we were to shave 50% off price action, because that is, kind of like the going rate from what we've seen in the past, doesn't mean it's always going to do that. But just put things in perspective, that would imply a target all the way down to about 3,600-ish region, which does actually line up with, of course, one of our lovely gaps on CMEs right here, coming in back from February 2019 at the 3550-ish region. So we do see some things aligning with that, and I think if we take it even one step further and put on what is a really important moving average for myself in traditional markets, which I think is going to take a bigger pull position in Bitcoin as time goes on. In fact, we already kind of see it being respected here. That's a 377, and where is that coming in around? It's coming in around that $3,600 number. So Bitcoin did want to pop back down around there and test it. I think that would make more or less sense, but I do want to keep an open mind here, because if Bitcoin does want to test the upside, there's really not much stopping it from above like 7,350 to 7,400 to the $8,000 region. So if Bitcoin wanted to, if the market movers wanted to wash out all the over leveraged shorts, they could very easily do it. What makes me think that that's less likely to happen is all those crosses that we spoke about, plus momentum turning back onto the downside on a bunch of different tools that we've been using, and then open interest, volume, and volatility all agreeing that we're very mature within this formation right here. And when I say mature, I mean that, theoretically speaking, we are definitely more than 75% full in this formation right here if we're working towards an apex of about April 19th, April 20th region. So that would suggest that at the very least, Bitcoin will be forced into a decision at around basically the end of this week, April 19th to April 20th. So that's a little bit less than 1 week from today. So by next Monday, it will be forced. And sometimes, you do get patterns that drone on a little bit. And if no direction is chosen, meaning no direction, like no big move, and we're looking for a big move here. We're looking for either $1,000 move to the upside or a $2,000 move to the downside, realistically speaking. Then typically gets a little bit more time after that, and then something new will emerge from it. Doesn't happen all that often, but can happen. So fair enough, good to talk about nonetheless. This is further confirmed by, I believe, the volatility signature, which the volatility signature to me suggests more downside as well. The reason why I say that is because it actually precipitates what we see on the volume and the open interest. And to me, that is more important. It's maybe a less direct way of looking at it, but it's a more leading indicator than the other two, which provides a shit ton of value. And as you can see right here, we contracted all the way from March 13th, basically to where we are right now. And once again, it's expanding, and you see that it's sustaining an expansion over here above the moving average on this, and on top of that, it's gaining. It's gaining it's not to the upside. It's the volatility is expanding more and more. So the momentum of the volatility is expanding. That's the word that I'm looking for, which is really important distinction to be made, because as price action comes to the downside from that point, by the way, this was the apex right here, quite literally at the top, and now the expansion phase coming as Bitcoin is literally trending to the downside, does make me lean towards the downside as well. Momentum also is on the lower term timeframes, like our lovely Stokes, actually not agreeing with that. We do see that 4-hour Stokes are actually up right here. Just out of curiosity, the reverse Stoke indicator would say that we have to close below where? Oh, isn't that lovely? Love it when the market agrees with itself at 6,750. So 6,700 I think is still just an easier or more conservative way of looking at it, but technically speaking, we have several things from both the higher term timeframes and these lower term timeframes saying 67.50 is the area to watch for the downside, as we're not just, breaking below there wouldn't just kind of produce another low and confirm this as a downtrend, lower lows and lower highs, kind of crazy. But it would also switch the momentum back on as we break that level. So looking at the 3 hour, I'd expect something relatively similar. Oh, what do you know? 67.50 again. What do we see on the 2 hour? 67.50 fucking again. What do we see on the hourly? 6,900, because it's actually technically down right now. So as long as Bitcoin's below 69, especially, but I could even say 6950 to 7,000-ish region. Even the lower term timeframes are kind of difficult here. So funnily enough, actually, while we are here on the hourly, by the way, historical volatility percentile rather low. It's in the single digits right now. So we probably are going to be looking at the very least, a short-term move, a short-term move to either the top side of the range or the bottom side of the range sooner rather than later. And again, this contraction phase coming after a nice move to the downside. It contracts, price action moves up. What happens when volatility is set to expand once again? Well, looking at open interest going down from yesterday to today would suggest that that increase in price action was shorts closing, which means that if bears want to put back on their big red dildos and start throwing them around, they very easily have plenty of ammo to go in dry with that. So that's why I still align with the bearish side right here. But hey, I'd be happy to switch around, if price action warrants that. At the end of the day, again, we're traders here, not fucking analysts, so not really worthwhile to get stuck in these more gang-like views is what I look at them as. Looking at the 12 hour, there's a really good computing narrative to everything that I'm saying, and usually when in doubt, the 12 hour tells the truth. What do we see here? 12 hour Stokes crossing up from the exact same trend line that we focused on. Oh, I guess, do I already have it in? No, I don't already have it in. From the exact same trend line that we focused on yesterday. So if I am going to be wrong on the, on overall direction, well, that would be a pretty damn good insight that I'm going to be wrong. I think I already have this trend line in over here. We're technically living a little bit below, but it doesn't need to be perfect. This is more of a regression than anything. Stokes are going to be more floaty and flighty. Historical volatility percentile on the 12 hour, very much waning. We are fully contracted. Well, we're not fully contracted, but we can still go a little bit longer. But that does suggest that this next expansion phase, we're going to see expansion come from all of the lower timeframes and the higher term timeframes. So it should be a pretty nice move overall. What else do we want to talk about? Okay, so let's go look at traditional markets right now. Let's go look at E-mini futures. These have been kind of a new staple of these, of these videos. So I think it's interesting. And what do we see here? A move back up to the top side of the range. So we do know, we don't know anything, or at least the more that I learn, the more that I realize I don't know fucking shit. It's like really frustrating actually. But overall, looking at E-mini futures right now and coming into it with the mindset that we do see a correlation between traditional markets and Bitcoin. And I think that all the people who are saying that it's not correlated are starting to really be quiet about it. And fair enough. Obviously I have my Twitter thread on that. If you want to debate that, just please go watch that. We don't need to fucking do it here. I don't want to go through another 20 minutes of content that I've done a million times. So I would greatly appreciate it. It's both better for you and myself if you just go on Twitter and there's a nice Twitter thread explaining that. And you can feel free to disagree as well. Maybe it even changes in the future as well. Possible. But with E-mini futures getting back up to the top side of the range, does Bitcoin actually test back up to 73 or 7,400? I think it actually could. This would be the most supporting of that argument to myself, at least. And but the question is, do we put in another local high here? It looks to me like E-mini futures are getting a little bit tired in this range as momentum starts to a little bit tail off on the hourly. Now, do I really trust post-market? It's not post-market, it's futures, but do I trust data that's in non-market trading hours? It's notoriously disingenuous, I think. But also historical volatility percentile being very low, we are set to either have a nice breakout from this level or a nice breakdown. That's what everyone fucking hates about TA. It's like, can go up, can go down. Well, if it goes down, I'd be notified by move back down below, let's call it 2770, and I'd look for extension all the way down here to low side of the range, about 2720 to 2730-ish region. By the same token, to the upside, a lot more interesting to the upside, as this one can really rip actually all the way up to maybe even 29 to 2950, which would put SPY right around the 290s to 295 region, and that would probably put Bitcoin as well. That'd probably put Bitcoin somewhere around 8,000. So if I am going to come up with a bullish case, actually the most bullish thing that I can come up with is looking at traditional markets and saying that it's very close to a breakout there if it wants to. However, I really need to see the open of traditional markets before getting too gung-ho about that. Anyways, going back down to our E-mini futures, let's look at it on a daily, or we're kind of already there. Daily Stokes getting way up there. That's fine though. You do expect them to kind of operate like that during strong moves, but we do see a nice trend line forming here, and we're going to be meeting it today, and it's actually got 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 touches on it. So it's not all said and done. Also, on top of that, we do have what looks to me to be more of a bearish signature on our daily RSI. We do have pretty massive hidden bearish divergence between this point over here all the way at wow, this is above 3100, so that would be like 310 on SPY, and this point right here, technically speaking. But this will not be confirmed. This will not be confirmed until we come back down below yesterday's daily low at the very least. And if I want to be more conservative, I'd look for actually Monday's daily low at 2700 even, and then I'd look for a full-on move all the way back down to about 2630, and that would probably land Bitcoin somewhere around the low 6,000s if you wanted to make a correlation between the two. But I'd probably look for a bounce there as well, at the very least on a low time frame. And then if it breaks it, then we can have some fun times to the downside. But I think that this is going to be a little bit slower moving than Bitcoin right now. So not really pressure on it exactly at the moment. But we do also have a little bit of a bearish formation going on right here as well, in the formation of a rising wedge, which do tend to work out better in traditional markets. Now let's look at Japan and see what Japan's doing. Japan's actually making new highs on this formation. Now has Japan been leading recently? No, it hasn't, but I do think that it's relevant nonetheless. We've seen it lead in the past, but for right now, technically speaking, we do have new highs on Japan. So I do want to present both sides, and that would be a little bit more on the good side, if you want to call it that, if you're bullish, I suppose. Looking at gold, we do see gold still being the absolute diamond in this fucking market, in world markets. Again, I'm not a huge fan of gold or anything like that, but I am a big fan of good charts, and we've been bullish on this one for a while, and I'd still remain bullish on it. I do think that I still think 1800s is likely where this one goes, medium and long term, and then we'll come back after that and reassess. But as long as this thing is especially above like 1620, I have no reason to be medium or long term bearish. Short term is going to ebb and flow. Maybe on the short term we have a little bit of we do have a little bit of lost momentum here. We do have some pretty massive bearish divergence on the hourly, even a jewel sell signal right here. So does it come back down and test around 1700 even, or even 1675? I think that that's possible. I don't think it would really throw anything off. It's the higher term timeframes that I'm focused on, some like this. So, right now this one does seem to be the hedge that the world is kind of agreeing on for the time being. You don't really see this on Bitcoin right now. You don't really see this on traditional markets. So fair enough. As it stands right now, and especially as long as we're closing weeklies above 1675, I really have no reason to be long-term bearish on it. Doesn't mean it can't happen again, but I retain that bias, which has been keeping us or keeping myself. Well, I don't even fucking trade this one, so why do you even talk about it? Fuck it. Fuck it. Let's go over to SPY, see how SPY closed the day yesterday, and it's going to be more or less the same as E-mini. Hard one here. Hard one. It looks like right now we'd probably open up right around 280, 282 and a half. Can we actually get above there, though, is a real question, or just get above Monday's high? That's just going to be time wasted, time waiting, or I suppose. We can go check out a couple of the top shitcoins and see how they're holding up right now. Maybe come up with a little bit more of a bias on this market, depending upon if there's some sort of an agreement, between all the majors. And Mr. Buterol, obviously a little bit more bearish than the rest, I do think. Wouldn't mind another test up to the 55 at 165, but overall, as long as this thing's below the 200 simple at 172 and a quarter, I have no reason to be long-term bullish on this thing. I'd still be long-term bearish on it. Doesn't mean I can't get above, but we need to do that first and foremost. You do see this long-term trend line coming in here as well, which would be coming in right at the 55. So if it even did pop back up to the 55, I'd probably look at that as an opportunity. If not, this, all momentum oscillators are pointed downwards right now. The weekly actually isn't all that bearish. The weekly actually is not all that bearish, to be fair. Litecoin 41 and a quarter right now as well. The weekly, looking more or less akin to Bitcoin. The daily significantly more bearish than both the Buterol and Bitcoin itself. As long as it's below the 21, I'm in no way, shape, or form bullish on this, and I do think that is probably going to gun for a move down to like $37. If Litecoin is leading this market, Litecoin would be the biggest indication that we are going to test some downside here. Again, if it wanted to pop back up towards 46 and a half. If Bitcoin tested around like 73 or 74, that'd be fine, but it doesn't change anything from the high in the macro timeframes. Above there though, that's when the floodgates get open to the upside, and I'd look for a move towards, above north of $50 again, which is really important actually, because what do we see on the weekly right here? We actually see a weekly exponential moving average death cross along the way. It probably will happen sometime around the end of this month, assuming that Litecoin is not able to get above, especially $50, and even from a longer term perspective, $60. So, again, doesn't mean that it can't happen, but putting perspective in here, more sideways is more bearish is kind of the picture that I'm painting from the long term on this one. From like a weekly closing basis, especially as long as below, $45. I mean, that's not looking all that hot there. Okay, cool. So we've already spoken your ear off for the last 35 minutes. I haven't even looked at probabilities just yet. So let's go over here, check out our probability chart and align it with our low term time frame areas once again. Again, 6,700 to the downside on a 12-hour total closure probably does it for me for opening up the floodgates. At the very least, for a move down to like 6,400, probably another bounce there, and then same shit as we spoke about before. We'd actually tighten this area up a little bit to the upside, a little bit more diabolical. I could get short-term bullish for extension on a 4-hour open and closure above 69.50. I'd at the very least target a move over here to 71.50ish region, and probably even by extension hit the 7400ish region once again. Above 7,400, that's where things start to look really good for the, well, maybe not look really good, but it looks good for another, extension of $600 ish or so at a $7,000 price point. That's almost a 10% move. That's really fucking tradable. And then who knows, maybe continuation after that to the upside, but one thing at a time. Anyways, so with those areas in mind, let's go over here to our probability chart and let's see what we got. So I'm looking at the daily right now with a range of, let's call it 67 to the downside. And to the upside, we can keep 73 for now, but I do want to see what the probability of 77,000 is, 6950, 7,000ish region. And as you can see right now, the above target probability, and again, this is for the medium and higher term timeframes above 73, that would be 13%. So you've seen this drastically go down as time goes on, and a failure to break to the upside has, well, not happened. The downside target probability has significantly gone up in relationship to it, all the way up to 26.25 now. So the downside, the more sideways that we go here, the more and more likely from a probability standpoint, from a mathematical standpoint with regards to historical volatility percentile, this gets angled to the downside. Now, I did say that the 7,300 is a little bit more of a lofty area. Of course, if we took like maybe 7,000 or is that 7,700, that's not fair. let's maybe talk about 7,000, huh? And what do we see here? We see that, the probability of that area get taken out to the upside is actually rather high. So I just want to show that another move above that area, which would in turn initiate at the very least another, $150 move up to 71.50. And I do think 73 to 7400 would get tested after that, is in the cards here still, but closing above that area and initiating that next set of targets, at least for myself, this is not financial advice, I'm not a financial advisor, is a little bit unlikely from a daily closing perspective. But right now that $7,000 level on a daily closing basis, a little bit above 39.5% to the downside, still obviously the same. We could take this one step further and not look at the 6,700ish region right here, and instead take the more conservative area down towards 64. I don't think that this is warranted. I don't think that this is needed, but I'm just curious, just for thoroughness' sake here, what would the probability of closing below that today be? 5.8%. It looks like 580. I can't even speak. Anyways, let's get back onto Bitcoin right now, and time to wrap this bitch up. 4-hour total closure below, especially like 6,700. I'd like to see like 6,650. Then yes, I do think that's going to initiate the whole on move to the downside, although it bounces along the way at the very least. And perhaps they do reverse, but we'll come back and analyze that in real time. By the same token, to the upside, as long as we're below the 200 exponential moving average on the 4-hour, I'm not bullish on price action. And if we open and close a 4-hour total above it, I would look for extension at the very least of 71.50 and probably all the way up to 73.50, 74, kind of in line with what we see in mini futures. Once again, kind of testing the prior high region. But tight margins here, and a big bad trade I think going to be showing its hand relatively soon. I do think that according to the volume signature and the volatility signature, we actually might even, well, the volatility suggests that we might already even be seeing it. The volume signature suggests that between now and a week from today, we very likely see a resolution here. So that's going to do it for right now. Like I said, will not be on Twitch later today, or very unlikely to be on Twitch, depending upon a few things. I need to go to the doctor and get a few things checked out. I want to wish everyone well once again, and again, apologize for the inconvenience in Discord. But at the end of the day, it's for a better user experience. And with that said, take care, and until next time.